And the country is once again going through a food crisis that is affecting 3.4 million Kenyans in 10 counties, and the reasons being advanced as causes all point to poor planning. While the donation drives organized as relief intervention are noble, they are just but band-aid solutions that have not and will not address the root cause of the problem. And joining me this afternoon is a power panel that will be trying to get to some very practical solutions towards this, and I'm joined by three gentlemen and there's one lady who is on the other studio, that is our ATM studio. And gentlemen and lady, many thanks for joining us. And today we are speaking to Daniel Maingi, who is an agroecologist and director of Growth Partners Africa. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
We also have with us a familiar face with us on KTN, and that is Kwame Owino, the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Economic Affairs. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
To the far left, we have the youthful gentleman, and that is Emmanuel Atamba, who is a youth ambassador and founder of Vijana Shambani Initiative. Thank you very much. And my director can confirm if we have with us Leila Liberatu, project lead of the Route to Food Alliance. I don't know if you can hear me, Leila.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Welcome to this discussion.
Thank you.
Let me dive straight in and give the lady the first to shoot. Looking at the food security situation right now, it has been bandied around as a political issue as well. From where you sit, are we putting politics into matters to do with food security?
Sorry, did you say are we putting politics into not matters to do with food security?
Correct.
I think food has become a very political issue from where we sit, but I would argue that not enough meaningful political commitment to sustainable, ecological, and socially inclusive food systems is evident. And when I say meaningful, it really begs recognition that agriculture, as it is on its current trajectory, does not necessarily mean good farming practices or food on the table for all Kenyans. And I think it's necessary to draw a distinction between agriculture, which is becoming increasingly commercialized, upscaled, and privatized. And a case-in-point example of that is the Galana Kalalu Food Security Project, versus food security, which is looking at family farming and pastoral systems and the ability of a family or a community unit to be self-sufficient. So we're talking about local supply, local production to local markets, because I think you would agree that GDP is not a criterion for food on the table.
Right, Leila. Let me throw in the question as well to Kwame. And Kwame, looking at the current situation, are we thinking of innovative economic policies that will address issues of food security? In this day and age, Kenya is still a food insecure country.
Well, it reflects many things. On the one side, we think of food security entirely as a supply problem, in the sense that when rains fail, then we get prepared to respond through relief food or any other mechanism that we do.
Yeah.
But that we are suffering from food security problems, and it's recurrent. I think 3 times in the last 4 years, suggests that it's a systemic problem. So it's not a problem of drought and all that. So that's a first. The second, obviously, is that the solutions that we have towards producing food are obviously not the wrong ones. So, for instance, we hear 2 weeks ago that farmers were unable to bag, or rather, to have the maize stored for them.
Sure.
And at the same time, food prices are going up. So what that means is that we cannot want farmers to get the highest price that they can, while on the other side also expecting people to be able to afford when incomes have been stagnant, more or less stagnant in the last 2 or 3 years. So that tells you that the economics around our reasoning around food is wrong. However, because food is a right, according to the Constitution,
correct,
then the way we need to look at it is a little different. So what we have are policies that protect big farmers, in the sense that you are providing fertilizer subsidies which go to farmers, seed subsidies, sometimes poorly done seeds, but it goes to the biggest farmers. When a good number of Kenyan farmers, even those who farm food at the household level, at the homestead level, buy extra food from the market. So if you're making food expensive because you want to protect 5,000 farmers, you end up with a situation such as this where you have food in stores, but people who actually need food cannot buy it.
Interesting. Maingi, is it a question of the value chain? Is it a question of the policies? What ails our planning as a country?
I think it's some bit of that, but more also the fact that in the last 20 years or so, there have been some very aggressive programs that were put in, especially the SAP, the Structural Adjustment Programs.
Sure.
That pulled extension and the way farmers learn how to grow their crops. So that has been pulled out. And the fact that the science is not keeping pace with climate change is also contributing to the lack of food.
And Emmanuel, as a young person, being a youth ambassador, we are seeing a lot of push towards having the young people forget about the white-collar jobs and go to the farms. What is the story around food generation? Because the young people, on the other hand, feel agriculture is not lucrative enough, it takes time, it requires patience, and they are critical actors in the bigger chain in terms of putting Kenya to become food secure.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest statements that we have had, the most hard statement, is that young people have a negative attitude towards food production and agriculture in general. But we have to first of all understand what young people go through when we talk about food insecurity. As a young person, I would understand that young people are mostly affected by food insecurity because they don't have resources, they don't have the decision-making power, even at the household level, at the communities, in the governing system. So young people, we first of all have to understand, we have to understand how young people cope with food insecurity and how they face it as a challenge, as a group of people, as individuals. So it's important for us to understand that. And then when we talk about young people involving themselves in agriculture, what kind of agriculture are we giving to the young people to take up, to inherit from us? Is it the agriculture where you have 2 acres of cabbages and you have to look at them for 4 months? There's nothing else you're doing in the farm. So as we move towards making ourselves more adaptable to climate change, making our farms more resilient, making our food production more meaningful to people, even to the farmers who are producing, as Kwame has said, you find even farmers producing food, but they're not food secure. So we need to look at diversification. We need to look at agroecological means of food production. And this is what will bring young people back to the farms.
All right. Yeah. And throwing it back to you, Kwame. So right now we've seen where the quote-unquote problem is. It's a question of production. Every year we have the key areas in the country which have bumper harvests. At the same time, the post-harvest losses account for nearly 30% of what we produce as a country, from the cash crops to the fruits, and all this goes to waste. What is the solution around value addition when it comes to avoiding the losses at farm level?
Well, I think it's just, let's remember first that farming, your farmer goes to the farm, spends 6 months waiting for maize, 4 months to 5 months waiting for maize to grow, because they want to earn an income and earn a living. So they're not just doing it because it's fun, or it's because they want to do it. It's a commercial aspect. Yes, it's a commercial. So because it's commercial, I think they probably, when they're losing 30% of that crop, the first thing it does is it actually cuts down their profits, and that's what makes every unit of food more expensive. So storage facilities are available, but most of the storage facilities that are available constructed first by government, and they're available only to big farmers, basically people with tons to store. Your small-scale farmer does not have that. So I think that the first part basically is to ask ourselves, if technology is available, how do we provide an incentive for whoever is making the production? Your small-scale homestead farmer, to be able to harvest, but also to store the food in a way that protects it from spoilage, because spoilage is a big issue.
Yes.
I am less concerned Well, I think that if you have to compare, because there are many, many more farmers who are farming at a small scale than the many who are big scale. So when you're asking about technology and value addition, you're talking about the bigger farmers, which is still fine. But my view is that we have a lot of scope to do by improving the farming productivity of the small farmers. So for instance, the small farmer in this country produces something like 8 to 9 bags per acre.
Sure.
The biggest farmers produce about 25. So my view is that if you could let the small farmer, help the small farmer to produce an extra 20%, it would benefit food production much, much more at rural and at household levels than just giving the bigger farmer much, much more. So it's basically about the economics and the value chain. So at what place do you help? The provision of extension services, for instance, would definitely help the small-scale farmer. The large-scale farmer with 5,000 acres obviously even has 2 people whose work is just to monitor the crops on a day-to-day basis. So when, whether it's because of reforms or because of mismanagement, I think it was mismanagement, we are not able to provide extension farming services, then obviously the small-scale farmer is the one who's most hit. And that's why it shows up in food insecurity.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, Leila, we will be getting back to you in a short while, and I'm going to take a quick commercial break. But on the other side of the break, Leila, I would like you to take us on some of the innovative approaches around financing in the agricultural sector, and this will be forming a critical basis for our conversation after this break. Don't go too far.